Hey everyone, we are closing up our weekly expert series with Matt Seamus. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. I love the purple.
Yeah, you got the purple shirt, got the hat.
Yeah, I like it.
One rental at a time. I had to
Well,
get
I
a hat.
just I just finished your book,
Oh yeah?
and yeah, thank you for publishing it. And yeah, I think I can definitely endorse it. I think it's worth reading, particularly for people who are just thinking about investing in their first property, want to kind of understand what the path has been like to move from employee to
Yeah.
real estate entrepreneur. And yeah, I think it'll be very valuable for a lot of people. I know it already has been valuable, and I think you're doing a good job
Oh,
marketing it and just kind of getting it out there, and probably helping a lot of people.
I appreciate that. You know, something I really like when I can get them is book selfies. So maybe you could take one with your kids, put the book up
Yes.
and take a selfie.
Well, so, the only caveat,
Yeah.
yes, I will do that, but I need to actually get a physical copy because I
Ah,
listen to the audiobook.
oh, well, come on.
I know. That's how I can consume more
Got it.
content. I can listen, and my wife gives me crap for this, but I listen to everything on like 2x speed when I'm doing something like going for a run or something like that.
Okay, cool. Well, that's cool. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is I think, and we've talked about this a couple of times, I call it the K-shaped recovery, right? And I'm starting to think that this K-shaped idea, right? Winners and losers. That's what I mean by a K, winners and losers. I think it's going to apply for various different cities in and around California. For example, I think a clear loser is San Francisco. I don't see any chance that San Francisco comes out of this in better shape than it did going in, bar none. And, to the flip side, I'm already seeing Fresno, a market that I've known for 20 years, act like I've never seen it act. I mean, I'm seeing things today in the single family market I have not seen in 20 years. And so before I dive into that anymore, what is that? How does that strike you? Do you see it the same way, winners and losers in California, across the country? How does that strike you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I generally agree with you. Well, let's see where each of our kind of points of conversation go. But I think I generally agree with you. There is already a uh, an exodus from a lot of kind of core urban areas, San Francisco and New York being the two
Mm-hmm.
most widely used data points.
Yep.
And then you see corresponding decreases in rents, increases in vacancies, that are, and job losses too, that are all kind of certainly related. And I think another thing, what's happening, at least anecdotally, is people are just kind of fundamentally revisiting their core values,
Yeah.
and they're rethinking, or at least being critical of, why do I live where I live,
Yeah.
and is this what I really want? I think this whole kind of pandemic and the economic uncertainty and just the overall economic backdrop is really encouraging people. It's a catalyst for people to reconsider their life. And yeah, I think that's going to have meaningful impacts.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the Bay Area. You and I are about 10, maybe 12 miles apart as we're doing this Zoom call, right? So we're both Bay Area folks, and we both have a deep tech background, right? So we've seen the valley come up. And I have seen more people leave the Bay Area in the last 3 months than I've seen in years gone by. Because I think you're right. I think people are evaluating choices where before you just kind of get sucked into the machine, right? You get in, you find a way to make rent. You're still living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it's just horrible here sometimes. But you're in the machine and you start getting RSUs or quarterly options or whatever it is, and it kind of feels okay. Then you get your Tesla and whatever. But now when people are having to stay home and, they're renters, and, I just saw that in New York. I only have this number. I don't have the Bay Area number, but it's probably the same. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath in Manhattan rents for $4,200. You can live in a lot of places for $4,200. And if your employer is saying live somewhere else, I think two things happen. I think the Bay Area shrinks. I think it gets more affordable. I mean, there's a plus side to that. But I think you're right. I think there's quality of life decisions. And if I remember correctly, you're renting in Los Gatos. Do I remember that right?
Yes, we rent because we don't have intentions to stay here long term.
Right.
And where we live, we can rent cheaper than we can buy.
By miles.
Yeah, significantly cheaper. And actually, just to illustrate your point about living paycheck to paycheck, I've quipped to my wife a couple times over the last handful of years. If you drive around the Bay Area, one of the things you will notice is very modest looking neighborhoods and modest looking homes.
Yeah.
And in the driveway, you'll see Tesla, Range Rover,
yeah,
BMW, Mercedes.
It's ridiculous.
And it's just kind of interesting because if you went to other parts of the country, you just see there's a little bit of a disconnect where people are living in, $1.5 million home, but it's very modest. And they make good income. They make good monthly income, but it goes out the window quickly. And people, can't often afford massive homes in the Bay Area,
no,
but they sure can afford $800 or $1,000 a month car payment.
Yeah.
And so It's kind of easy to add a couple of those onto your, onto your monthly bills. And all of a sudden you have a whole cohort of people that are living in these really modest homes in very modest neighborhoods that other, people from other parts of the country would look at and just unfathomable that you would pay, $1.5 million or $2 million for that home. But then they have really nice vehicles in the driveway. I just find that an interesting observation.
Yeah. So I live in a condo community. We moved in as brand new owners in 1999. It was $300,000, 303, I think 303 or 313, something like that. Our neighbor literally next door just sold for just shy of 1.7.
Oh, wow.
It's a know nothing condo. It's 1,343 square feet or 53 square feet. And you're right about the Teslas and Range Rovers. We go on a walk now because of course you can't go to anywhere else. And in my little 1 mile walk, I think I counted 37 Teslas yesterday or the day before. The Bay Area doesn't make sense. And I think going back to this concept, I think a lot of people are self-selecting because if you can let's just say you keep 90% of your income. Let's say your employer adjusts you a little, but you can go to a city or heaven forbid a state where your cost of living is 50% or lower.
Yeah.
You win. You not only win, but you win huge. You could actually start saving money. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think there's also, there's cost, which is a factor in quality of life, but there's also other factors that go into the quality of life equation that I think everyone is kind of considering. In fact, the pandemic and the economic uncertainty and the very specifically, my wife works at Google, but specifically their policy, which the most recent stance is no one plan on coming back to work until at least June 2021.
Yeah, 2021, folks.
Yeah, so they basically said, and they closed down in mid-March. So, it's going to be 15, 16 months before people start to trickle back into work. I think it's easily a couple of years that their offices are largely vacant. And I think it will, the other thing is I think people will quickly, many people already will quickly kind of fall into this new lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people will maybe acknowledge the fact that they're probably not employable in the same way that they were before. I don't think a lot of people are not going to want to go back to the office from 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah. You got to remember one of the biggest issues in the Bay Area and why real estate is so expensive is because when you get to some level, you want to live closer to the office.
Right.
That's why Palo Alto is really expensive. That's why Cupertino is really expensive, right? Cupertino because of Apple, Palo Alto because of Facebook, right? You want to get closer because if you're out in Willow Glen, which is a wonderful part of San Jose, it could be an hour
Yeah, it could.
commute, and it's only like 17 miles. I mean,
Right.
so people have done that, but now if you're making quality of life decisions and you can work from home, let's just say it's 2021 and Google says you could come back, or Facebook or Twitter, but they say, you know what, we only want you 4 days a month, right? Because they're going to do odd shifts and all of that stuff.
Right.
You know, why don't you live 3 or 4 hours away? Why don't you go to Fresno? Back to my thinking about why Fresno is just going to explode. Because it's 2.5 hours. It's all freeway, no crazy back road country driving. Where, just to our earlier example, I could have bought a 4,000 square foot lakefront home, man-made lake, but still lakefront, for 1.3 million bucks. And I just told you my neighbor was 1.7.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Olivia going, why the hell are we still here?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it is, it's not just you and I having these thoughts. There's a lot of other people I've seen. I'm in a handful of ex-Facebook employee Facebook groups where there's a lot of discussion. And people are considering or moving and asking for feedback on a move to mostly east. I think what I've seen is mostly east. So if you take from the Bay Area, if you start driving east, you run into, Livermore, Tracy, Stockton, kind of the San Joaquin Valley area, which has some similar characteristics to Fresno, as you know. But at proximity to the Bay Area is it's very close. Cost of living is much, much lower. And yeah, you're right. If you're commuting into the office only occasionally, it kind of makes sense. This is like, you also see, you could actually look at other industries where people commute to work fewer days a week, like where people work 12-hour shifts or 24-hour shifts, firefighters or police or nurses. Oftentimes they don't live where they work because they can't afford it, and they understand their lifestyle and the work schedule accommodates a commute. You're only going to commute a couple times a week. So I definitely see that happening. And personally, this has accelerated our own family's thinking of, well, why are we still here? I mean, we've talked about moving out of the Bay Area for years, and this feels like a catalyst to actually go make it happen.
Yeah. So what does that mean? So does that mean for you, you're going to stay in California because you want to, or does that mean, what we're done, we're going to go somewhere east, out of state, you think, or you don't know yet?
Well, we are gonna move to Santa Barbara.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of been on the radar for a long time.
All right.
We talked about potentially moving out of the state, and there are there are real benefits to doing that. It's significantly cheaper. Your quality of life can be much higher. My wife and I were both born and raised here, and particularly my wife, leaving California is a hurdle that we're not collectively ready to go take on. But we have business in Santa Barbara. We feel like we're gonna have a lot more business there, and it's a lifestyle choice. We want to go be somewhere where the pace is a bit slower, and where you can, Santa Barbara is not cheap either, but it is, you definitely get more for your money than you do here. And the lifestyle is just, like I said,
it's a different
pace.
speed.
Yeah. It's a much different speed. Everything feels a bit lighter, there.
Yeah. So first off, the only reason I'm not on that lake house right now is because Olivia said no. So let's just be clear. The only reason I'm not on the patio overlooking the lake doing this interview is because she said no. So I get that. Happy wife, happy life. Totally get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I really see San Francisco, LA, and the Bay Area, which are the most unaffordable cities in California, losing. In the Bay Area, I think we're going to lose some of the cachet because people are going to start to spread out, and we're going to use Zoom and online tools and Slack and all these other things, and Google and Facebook, all these other things that are coming at us. And I think we're going to turn off the inflow, right? One of the things that made the valley is we had all these engineers and computer scientists roll through brand new every year, right? They kind of cycled the machine. And I think that's going to turn off too, because right now companies are saying like, no, we'll hire you, but stay where you are.
Yeah,
It's very different.
that's true. And I wonder if that does hurt younger people. I think it probably does in some ways, because someone that's more established in their career, has the confidence and just the capital built up in their industry and in their work, that they can afford to maybe not have face time in the office. But I think largely, executives, people that want to be, on the executive path, and young people early in their careers,
Yeah, for sure,
are going to need to still be pretty close to home.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
So I think that will probably play out. And I don't want to overstate my own opinion about what will happen to the Bay Area, but I certainly think it will be a meaningful shift.
Yeah.
And I even think, like, San Francisco, I definitely think will be hurt. And I find it, just if you think about investing, what you want as an investor is certainty, and you want fundamentals that are moving up and to the right.
Yeah.
Right? You want like demographics and fundamentals that are moving up and to the right. And you don't have those things right now, just at least in this snapshot, in this moment of time. You do not have those things in San Francisco.
There's no chance.
Makes it very hard to consider an investment, whether that is an investment in a property, whether that's an investment in starting a new business. So I do think there's going to be meaningful shifts. Even, if you just look at, and this is anecdotal as well, but if you live in the Bay Area and you have a second home, if you have a vacation home, you have not been in the Bay Area the last 6 months.
No chance.
You've been at your vacation home.
Absolutely.
I know people that have been in Montana, have been on the beach in the Central Coast, have been I know people that have moved to the Midwest because that's where they're from. And they just felt like, I'm not going to be in the office for another year. I'm going to go move there and we'll just see what happens. And I think a lot of people are the trend. I think you have the first movers, and then you have people that have kind of had the bedtime pillow talk about the concept.
Yep.
And once those people see the first movers, there becomes, I think, the likelihood of a new wave bigger than the initial wave
for sure
of movement. And I think we're probably at that point where people are starting to see others move, and it's giving some people courage.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. First and foremost, the reason I follow real estate is, and I follow my market every day, is because it does move in that trend, right? If you can identify the first movers in a trend, that second wave is always bigger. And when you get real lucky, there's a third wave, right, that just takes it to the next level. So you're absolutely right there. I think a lot of the second movers in the Bay Area anyway, again, where I know day-to-day conversation is around schools.
Yeah.
Right, where school is going to open. And for the most part, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, I give up. Right. Especially if you're in an apartment, you're just like, I'm done. I'm not going to pay $4,000 a month or whatever it is, because I can't educate my kids and do my job and make my gym. We're out of here, honey.
Yeah.
And that's, I have brokers. I talked to 3 brokers last week. They're getting calls from people in the Bay Area going, I want to buy something. It's got to be ready to go because my kid's starting school. This second wave is happening. I think some people were holding on for the summer going, the hot weather will kill the virus. It'll go away, blah, blah, blah. School's open. I've always wanted my kid in Cupertino, right? I'm just making that up. But now it's closed. Why pay Cupertino crazy real estate when you can't go to Cupertino school? It's crazy.
I think you're absolutely right. A lot of a good chunk. I'm sure I'm not familiar with it, but I'm sure there's academic research that tries to identify what proportion of a home's value is attributable to the school district, but it's significant.
Well, you and I both know the domination of people that buy in Cupertino is because of the schools.
Yeah.
If you're going to move to Cupertino, you're going to pay through the nose. And the only reason you're going there is because your child's 3 or 4 years old and you want to get them into kindergarten there.
Schools and proximity. Yeah. And proximity to your
employer.
Workplace.
Yeah.
So you're right. And when those two drivers are not there, people's behavior are going to change.
why do you, I mean, just think about it. If you work in a technology company, why would you, and again, Cupertino is not new, folks. Cupertino is, I mean, you're buying 1950s build ranches
Yes.
for $2 million these days.
That's probably entry level.
That's entry. That's like not touched. I mean, it's changing. I mean, I'm getting notes from everybody and they're like, I'll take 90% of my salary, go somewhere else in California so I'm close enough for that monthly meeting or whatever it is, so I don't need a plane. And we're going to go buy something. We're going to own, and we're going to put a bunch of money in the bank. And people are going to realize that their quality of life changes overnight. They can save money.
Yeah.
They can go on vacations. Because if you live in the Bay Area and you make six figures, you're poor. Paycheck to paycheck.
No, you're right. You're right. You're certainly not advancing. Everyone has high incomes. I do think there are some places in the Bay Area that I have, I'm optimistic about, like, for instance, San Jose, I'm pretty optimistic about, like downtown San Jose in particular.
Yeah.
There's a ton of construction going on. In a few years, that skyline is going to look completely different.
True.
Lots of investment from like big companies, in particular Google, building a big campus there, which is years off, right? That's not going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years.
It's there.
But the relative value, you mentioned Willow Glen, which is just a nice neighborhood in San Jose, and there are many others. The relative value, the weather, the space that you get, these are all things that I think people are going to just place a bigger emphasis on. So I don't think it's all bad news for the Bay Area, but all good things come to an end and all good things change. Trees don't grow to the moon, right? Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just a moment of reckoning that the next 5 years are not going to look like the last 5 years.
That's exactly right. And I do think and again, I think the Silicon Valley, when it's humming, there's a vibration, right? The last, like 2008, there's a vibration, right? And it's gone. There's no heartbeat. There's no thing, because everybody's kind of staying away. Just your interconnectivity and lunches and dinners out and cocktails, it's just not there.
No, you're right. The collective energy seems very low.
Yeah. So I do think, I think the Bay Area is going to have a rough couple of years. I do think prices will go down. I don't think they'll go down a ton, but they'll go down some. I think San Francisco is in big trouble. I think San Francisco's in trouble for a decade. I think San Francisco. Do you remember San Francisco in the 70s?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't around.
Yeah, you might want to go look it up, because San Francisco in the 70s, and I was around 10, so my memory could be skewed as a 10-year-old, but it was crime-ridden, dirty. I remember the smell from this. And again, I worked in the city, like Branham and 2nd, Branham and 3rd, Branham and 2nd, I think, for multiple years. So just recently. So I love the city, but oh man, I think the city's going to go the wrong direction for a decade. So, but again, back to your point, at some point it will become investable again, right? Come down, it'll be investable again. And then you'll come back in and revitalize the city. It's just years from now, I think.
Well, let me also just call out one thing that I think, philosophy or philosophical point that I think we share, that works really well in this moment. In Fresno, remind me of the median home price.
It just recently hit 329. Okay.
So 329, and the median home price in Santa Clara County is probably
1.1.
It's probably, maybe higher.
Yeah.
But so, you're talking about at least 4 times the cost.
Yes.
And the properties that you are buying and you're investing in are below the median.
Oh, way below. They're
so
60% of the median.
Exactly. So, and the thing that I love about buying properties that are, you have to take all considerations into account. But when you buy properties with low price points and with low relative rents, every incremental dollar increase in price point and increase in rent is a huge percentage increase.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that is, you and others are going to benefit from that, because when when someone moves from the Bay Area to Fresno, they have reverse sticker shock.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, and so an extra 10 grand to get the deal done is not even meaningful.
Nothing. Yeah.
And so I just think that's I think it's a point to reflect on. And
I've been thinking a lot about this. I think Fresno, again, if the population goes the way I do, goes from 1 million to like 1.3 in the next 2.5 years, Fresno's median, let's just call it 330 for easy math, could easily be 500 in 2.5 years. And let's just be clear, that does really good things for somebody who owns a lot of units.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And, oh, by the way, rents like you said, rents will go up as well. Probably, I think housing goes up first, rents will go up second.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a bad time to be a Fresno landlord. That's for sure.
No, I think that's right. And generally the trend is looking for a lower cost of living, a higher quality of life, more space,
Yes.
More square footage, more outdoor space,
Yes.
Access to kind of like cultural or, nearby attractions or amenities. It's hard to beat in the Bay Area.
Yeah. For sure.
That's hard to beat.
For sure.
But these other things certainly outweigh that for many people. And so, yeah, I think Fresno could be a winner, and I think a lot of other parts of California could be winners too. I think big parts of Southern California, because you have people that say, well, I can go move to somewhere in LA or near or around LA and pay the same. I'm going to pay the same, but my quality of life is going to be higher. And I'm going to make that trade-off now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of quality of life decisions going on right now. And I think for the most part, when we get out of this, people will be happier. Because again, living in the Bay Area, operating on probably 2 6-figure incomes, husband and wife, and being poor is not fun. I mean, that's just ridiculous to say, right? I mean, it's the truth though.
Well, I think you're right. The happiness thing, I hope you're right, because in the most fundamental way, people are reconsidering what they value.
Yes.
Exactly. And so once you take a moment to reconsider what you value, and then you make explicit decisions to prioritize what you value, it's hard to imagine not ending up happier or more fulfilled or more content.
I like it. Well, Matt, we're going to leave it there. I think that's a great way to close this conversation. I appreciate you, and I'm really glad you enjoyed the book. That meant a lot to me to hear that in the beginning.
Absolutely. All right, Michael. Have a great weekend.
You too, man.